Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com. In this video, we're going to add a JSP to our project. So the first thing we need to do is figure out where we're going to put it. Maven has this standard directory structure. For example, we've got this source main Java folder that contains our Java files and our packages. I'm going to right click that and go to New Other, and under General here, I think we've got the option to create a new folder. So I'll click Next, having selected folder, and I actually want to put this new folder under just source main. So I'm going to select the main folder here, and I'm going to call this web app. And this is a standard Maven thing. The stuff you put in web app is going to get deployed with your project. So let's click Finish. And we see here, we've got the main folder there, and there's web app. Now I'm going to right click web app and create another folder within web app. So new folder there. And this one I'm going to call web-inf in capital letters. And this is a standard thing for Java application servers like Tomcat. It's a folder that contains stuff that's not publicly accessible, so you can't go directly to the contents of this folder in a browser. So it's restricted. It has like restricted security, which is great. But our application can access that folder and use stuff that's in it. So we're going to be using that to contain our JSPs. So I click Finish, and now I've got source main web app webinf. And in there I want to create a subfolder just to put all my JSPs in one place. And we are going to change this later on because we're going to be using Apache Tiles, which is a really great technology. But we'll get started in just in the easiest way possible here. So I'm going to right click web-inf now and go to new folder. And I'm just going to make up a folder name. I'll just call it JSPs. Now we can create a new JSP file and put it in there. So I'm going to right click the JSPs folder. So now we've got source main web app web-inf JSPs. I'm going to right click the JSPs folder and go to new other. And if we go to the web section here, we can select JSP file, click Next, and let's just make up a name for this. So I'll call it home.jsp. It doesn't really matter what you choose as long as it's not got spaces in it. And I'll click Finish. So now we've got something that looks totally like an HTML file, except that it's got this page directive at the top that basically says it's a JSP file. So we've got, as with a normal HTML file, we've got start and end body tags here. And between those, I'm going to just put some text for the moment. Let's write hello world JSP so that we know when we're getting content from our page. And let's save that. So I'm not going to go into HTML in this course. That's kind of a prerequisite for the course, but I'll try to explain everything I'm doing in case you're not familiar with HTML as we go along. Okay, so now we need to tell our web app that it's going to be serving up content. It's going to be serving up JSPs, and the JSPs will actually get transformed by our web app into servlets, which are special Java classes that can handle web requests. So this code here will actually get turned into a Java object, basically, or Java class, and there'll be an object created from that, and that's going to handle web requests, and it's going to serve up whatever we write here. And we're going to be able to actually put tags in here that will retrieve data from a database and that sort of thing. But that's getting ahead of myself, really. Okay, so the next thing to do here is we need to go to this resources folder. So resources contains resources for our application, things that the application's going to use. And for example, if we right click that and go to new, let's go to new other, let's look for general here and create just a new file. One thing I can put in this resources folder are properties files that configure our application. A lot of what we do in Spring, in Spring, and particularly in Spring Boot, unfortunately has a sort of recipe type feel to it, where you don't really know why you're doing stuff, and you won't find out unless you really dig into the source code here, because the documentation doesn't always say why something works as it does. Unfortunately, because it's a framework, we've kind of just got to configure things in the way the documentation tells us to, and keep our fingers crossed that they work. But that's how it is with frameworks, really. So what we can do here is we can create a application.properties file. And I'm going to click finish. So maybe you're familiar with properties files from Java generally. And this contains some configuration for our app. So the first thing we need to do in here is say what folder our JSPs are going to be served from relative to the web app folder that we created here. So the name of the configuration option is spring.mvc.view.prefix. Now this actually has changed between versions of Spring Boot. So I learned Spring some time ago now, and then recently I started learning Spring Boot, which I'm now telling you about. And for a long while I was completely flummoxed because all the documentation has a different property name in here. But for the latest version we need Spring MVC view.prefix. I'm going to set that equal to /web-inf/ and the name of the folder I created, JSPs, and I'll put a slash on the end there. So you'll see how this works shortly, but our controller is going to specify a name for the JSP, and that name is going to get prefixed with this, and it's going to get suffixed with what I'm about to specify. So that whole thing will make the name of the file, which Spring Boot can then find. So next I need spring.mvc.view.suffix, and that's equal to .jsp. So all we need now to get the name of a JSP relative to the web app folder is something in between. So we have that, and then we have, for example, home, because we've got home.jsp here. And then on the end of it, we've got .jsp. Okay, so let's save that. There's one more thing that you could optionally turn on at this point, which might help you, which is you could say debug equals true. And if you do that, you'll get more debug output from your application, which might help you get to the root of any problems that you encounter. Let's save that. So that's in source main resources, and it's got to be called application.properties. Now we can go to our controller. So let's go to app.java, and I'm going to get rid of response body here, because what we want to do now is return the name of a JSP. So I'm going to just return here home, like that, and we'll save it. So now we've still got the request mapping, so our base URL is going to be handled by this method, which returns just the text home. And Spring Boot's going to take the suffix here, add home to it, and then add .jsp. So it's going to find it in its web app folder right there, if everything's working. Okay, let's try it. Let's stop this web app now. And I want to make sure I'm running the right one. So I'm just going to right click app.java here and go to run as Java application. So once it's started up, so you see, I think that we've got some more output here that we didn't have before because I've turned debug on. And if that gets annoying, you can always turn it off again in application.properties. Let's go to a browser. And this is where I kind of cross my fingers, take a deep breath and hope that this works. And I don't have to Google error messages and stuff. But yeah, it does work. We've got hello world JSP. So that's coming from our JSP file. And of course, we could use normal HTML in there. Like if you want to put a strong tag in, for example, or whatever you like. If you're familiar with HTML, you can get creative there. Let's save it. And if you just save this JSP, you probably won't need to actually restart the web app. But if you do anything complex in there, like adding tags that retrieve data, then maybe you will want to restart it. But in general, we can just edit this, and whatever edits we make, so this is now in bold, will just be immediately reflected when we just refresh it by default. Okay, that's it for this tutorial. Do have a go at that, and hopefully it'll go pretty smoothly for you. And until next time, happy coding.